I'm so excited for tonight. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring some people out that are a part of our church, some of my favorite people from Citizen Church that just have a lot of wisdom, I think, on dating, singleness, marriage, you name it. We've done a lot of things well. We've also done a lot of things poorly, and we want to share some of that with you guys tonight. And so we're gonna bring scripture in, we're gonna bring the Bible. But one of the things I wanted you to know before we start this is we are gonna give some of our thoughts and opinions tonight. And I want you to know why I think that's okay. I think that's okay because this group of people up here, we are living with what's called a biblical worldview, which is what many of you guys are doing as well. And so even what we tell you tonight, if it's advice, if it's our opinion, these are things that are based and rooted in the Bible and in a life of somebody who's in full pursuit of Jesus Christ. And so our heart is just to help you. I want you to date well. I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want you to hurt other people. And I want you to have a great marriage. How many of you guys want to have a great marriage like when you get married, right? I want you to have a great marriage. I want you to have a great, rest 65 years of your life with that person, and you're old and ugly, but you know what? You did it. You made it, okay? Hey, so I'm going to go ahead and invite our panel out. And so if you guys would, panel's going to start making their way out. My brother Dustin's coming up here as well. And so give them a huge hand. Let's welcome them tonight. And we'll get to know all these guys. We got a lot of people coming out here, so we're gonna talk. We're gonna be here for a few hours. No, I'm kidding. 45 minutes, okay? Here we go. Awesome. Let's do one more hand, because it's just, I can't do awkward silence. I'm not here for it. So, okay, you do. All right. What's up, Dustin?
Sorry.
You're good?
Just getting settled over here.
You're good. It's a tricky chair.
It is, very tricky chair. They look comfortable, but it's just like a hide. Okay, so here's what we want to do. We want to introduce everybody on the panel tonight, and we have a long list of questions. All of them, I guess all of them are ones you guys sent in via Instagram, right? Instastory?
Yes, Instastories, yep.
Instastory. I know what that is.
You do?
Via Instastory. So they're all great questions. We're going to try to get to them. We may not get to all of them depending on how the flow goes with the questions. But just real quick before we start off, we want to go through our panel, and you guys just introduce yourselves. And then after we introduce ourselves, I might pick somebody to tell a funny story about dating or something. But why don't we start here and just kind of tell people who you are, how long you've been married, and kind of what your role is here at the church.
Sure. My name is Craig Beckman. This is my wife, Sarah. We've been married for 27 years
27.
On Wednesday.
Let's go.
And everybody knows Sarah because she talks to everybody and likes everybody. I talk to fewer people, which is why I serve on security, which I really like.
Do you like everybody, though?
I do like people,
okay.
just as long as they don't talk to me.
Okay, good, okay.
Wow. Welcoming, isn't it?
Great.
Yeah, I'm Sarah, and I serve on the prayer team, and I, right now, am currently traveling back and forth to Maui to help a little bit with that campus.
My name is Chris, and this is my beautiful wife, Megan, and we've been married for, it'll be 10 years in January, and
Let's
so,
go.
Yep.
Hey, fun fact, Chris and I were across the hall roommates in college.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Chris and Tony, crazy guys. Let's go.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's
Been
weird.
hanging out since 2009.
Whatever.
Oh, okay. I guess I get to do it. I am Marion. This is my beautiful husband, Nick.
Wow, he's beautiful.
I got a yeah over there from a guy. You said beautiful husband.
Excellent. Words of
So
affirmation. And Nick is the advancement pastor here at the church, so all things outside the wall, advancing kingdom of God. And I am the citizen internship director. Love my people. As well as Alpha and Beyond Alpha small group director. Yeah.
Okay.
Power couple. You guys know us, Brandon and Delaney. We have been married for almost 7 years. I round up, he rounds down, so we're gonna go with 7. We're just gonna say
Almost
it.
7.
January will be 7 years, yes.
Literally, we had been married 6 months in a month, 6 years in a month, and she's like, it's been 7 years, and I'm like, no, what are you talking about? You're just making me feel like my life is flying by way too fast. But Yeah, so that's everybody up here.
Cool. If you don't know me, I'm Dustin. My wife is at home with the kids doing homework. That's why I'm moderating. But Mandy and I have been married for 8 years last month, so I might chime in a little bit, but you guys
Why
heard
not?
a lot from me last week. So you guys actually mentioned a funny story about when you first started dating, and I think you need to share, just to kind of
Sure.
break the ice here.
So we will date ourselves here, but we started dating in college, and this was pre-internet and pre-cell phone. So the only way we communicated was face-to-face or on a dial phone that we dialed each other. And we started dating
What?
right before Christmas, and then went away for Christmas, and I actually traveled to the Southwest with my parents, and she went home to her family, and she gave me her number at her mom's house and said, call me, especially on Christmas. And of course, I forgot it. So then her family, every time the phone rang on Christmas, because I was the new boyfriend, they would say, is that him? And it was never me. And so they kept telling her to dump me. Luckily, I felt so guilty for forgetting, and I wrote her a love note that she got when she got home, and here we are married 27 years later.
Let's go. Good job, Craig.
Love letters.
It was a really good love letter.
We need to bring love letters back.
I know.
You
Yeah.
definitely do. It's a good way to win a girl, even when her whole family says to
Yeah.
ditch the boy.
It's good. Okay, so I think you cool just jump right in?
Let's go.
All right. So we kind of ordered these to where I think we can kind of ease into it a little bit. But Chris and Megan, this will be for you guys, the first one. One of the questions that came in was, how do I know if I'm ready to date? How do I
Okay.
know if I'm ready to date?
Okay. I would say this. First thing is that I'm gonna be for real. Actually, like I know that people are ready for like some. All right, we'll get there. But honestly, I think you know when you're ready to date when your fulfillment is in Christ, not in who the potential date might be. And so I would say this, that I think a lot of people approach dating with the attitude of, if I can just find the right person with the right looks, the right gifts, the right personality, then I'll be happy, then I'll be content, then I'll be complete. But the reality is this, until you are the right person, you'll just take the one who could have been the right one and turn them into the wrong one because you weren't ready. And so I think I'd sum it up like this, that you really have to know you and who you are in Christ before you worry about who. You know what I'm saying? You need to know you before you worry about who. And so, sorry.
Somebody write that down.
I just really worked so hard to try to make that rhyme. Okay, I'm sorry.
Or say, I do.
Hey, let's go. We're wrapping up here.
Okay, has anyone written a list of their perfect spouse? Is that a thing still?
They're just
Well,
not going to admit it. They
Back
have.
in the
Yeah,
day,
yeah.
that's what we
It's
were.
the guy in the back row, like,
That's what we did, right? All the qualities that we wanted to have in our future spouse, because you should be thinking about the qualities you want to spend the rest of your life with. Good tip. But as you're going through that list, whether it's mental or even on paper, you need to make sure that you are fulfilling those things too. Until you can fulfill those qualities, you're not ready, because God and you, 100%, your future spouse, and God, 100%. One whole person marries one whole person. So, yeah.
And you're saying that because a lot of people think it's 50-50. Like, I'm gonna go find my other half. We joke, it's like, this is my better half. And like, she really is like the better, portion of me. But yeah, you're not finding your better half. It's like you can find your better whole. But it's so much healthier if somebody's like, I am whole and complete in Christ, and I'm gonna find somebody else who is whole and complete in Christ. Because otherwise, you're gonna try to get them to fill a void that only Christ can fill. Right. And then you're never gonna live up to that the rest of your life, and so you're gonna disappoint them for the rest of their life. And so, yeah, I think that's great. Good job, guys.
I love what you said, Megan. I think it's really profound, because when you make a list of things you want in a future spouse, there's very few people that have the discipline of self-awareness to analyze that list and look at themselves. And when you look at yourself and grow yourself, that's the best preparation for marriage, because that's all it is looking at yourself and being selfless. Okay, so you guys have 3 kids that are in this age group, 18, 20, 22 years old. One of them is married, right? I wanted to ask the same question to you guys, but answering it from the perspective of being a parent. So when you look at your kids, when you're giving them advice, many people here probably have godly parents, and some people probably don't. And I think it's a really cool opportunity for them to hear from people like you guys. And I wanted to say this at the very beginning. I've known you guys for several years now, but really gotten to know you this last year. And this is what I love about you. Some people, the more you get to know them, the more you're like, you know, you guys, the more I get to know you, the more I know how, the more godly you are to me. The more I love you and the more I trust you, the more wisdom that pours out of you. And I think that just it says so much. So you guys being parents, godly parents, how do you know when your kids are ready to date and pretend they are your kids?
I'd love for y'all to be my kids because my nest is empty now. Sad. Yeah, but I really like hanging out with him, so that's good. I would say that you all are above this age, but it's ridiculous to date when you're in 7th and 8th grade. It should never be a thing. And even 9th grade is pretty much probably stupid as well, sorry to say. But really, you know, some wise friends of ours said that 16, like when you can drive, is maybe when you should think about going on a date. And I know you all date differently, and we call it hanging out, and we are talking in quotations, and then when does talking move into like we're going places? I'm not sure. Do we not talk when we go
The
but
people want to
anyway,
know. Help them. No, I don't know. No one knows.
right, who knows how it all gets defined? It's certainly not Facebook official anymore. I know that much. But I would say 16 is maybe a guideline, but I think it also depends on maturity and the right intention. And I love Brandon's definition of dating and knowing that it's about learning who you want to marry, not just, oh, I have someone to go to the dance with, or oh, I have someone that I can make out with, or oh, I have someone that I can go to the movies with. Because if you are dating so that you're not alone, so that you're a someone and a coupled thing, then that's a recipe for disaster. Because dating for that purpose isn't the right purpose of dating. And Craig might have something to add, but that's me.
Yeah, so Sarah is much more black and white. So I am much more gray. I don't think there is an age. I think it's in a range for most young adults. And a couple of things I would say as a father, especially for all three of my children, if they're not at a position yet that they're comfortable bringing that person home to meet us,
Oh, shoot.
then that's probably you're not comfortable enough with yourself and maybe not even comfortable with this person. But if you feel like I'm comfortable with myself and my faith, I'm comfortable with them and their faith, and I'm excited to have my parents meet them, maybe that is a maturity level for both of you. Or if the one you're dating says, no way, am I meeting your dad? Again, red flag in my mind that's maybe not the right time to start dating.
That's good. That's good, man. Give that a hand, because that's really good. Okay. Is there anything any of you guys want to add to this? I think those are great answers. The next one I think we can have a little bit of fun with, and whoever wrote this, thank you, because it's a fun one. When you are with the right person, or when you meet the right person, is it really a you know when you know type feeling? When you're with the right person, when you see that person, is it really that kind of feeling? You just know. How many of you guys ever heard someone say that? When you find the right person, finally, you just know. Nick, you want to go for it?
Yes, actually, I do. I think I knew that I knew way before you knew that you knew. So this might be a question that we both answer. But I remember, truthfully, and this is not, hopefully it helps somebody, but I remember seeing her and being like, that's it, she's the one. And we were living together at the time.
Roommates.
We were roommates.
Got to be careful with that terminology, Nick. Completely platonic.
Nick was not living with Marion either.
We were roommates, guys. But I remember having those conversations with you and saying, dude, I'm going to marry her. I'm going to marry her. I think it took you a while to come around to that understanding. So maybe you should speak to
Hold
when
on,
you do.
No. Tell them what you did.
This gets weird.
This gets really weird.
Do not judge me, okay? So how many guys are familiar with, like, Fable, the game Fable? Oh, yes. I made her as my wife in this video game. Don't judge.
And he's not 17 when this is happening. He's in his mid-20s.
And also an Oregon Trail. I put
like, hey,
her.
Dustin,
Remember
I
Oregon
married Mary
Trail?
and my
No,
wife.
anybody? A couple of you. Oregon Trail was a game where you put together a party of people and you try to make it to Oregon. And she was the only one that survived, so I knew that she was the one because of Oregon Trail.
I think
so
the
that's
Bible
how you
talks
find.
about
That's
that.
how you find your wife.
Yeah.
Put the 5 girls you're interested in on Oregon Trail.
Whichever
whoever
one
lives.
lives.
That's it.
That's God.
That's exactly right.
Should we pray? Are we done?
Yeah, we're done.
Okay.
Marion?
Oh man.
She knew none of this until after they got married. Otherwise, I don't know if it would have happened.
Yeah, we were we were already married. I'm like, you did what? That's really weird. I think for me, for sure, and like, I'm not as funny as you at all, but it was not like a you know and you know. It was like a gradual. I fell in love with you, and then I knew. So it was, yeah. For me, it was not a I. Oh, that's messed up. Yeah. Okay. Not telling that.
I'll tell the story really quick. One second. So yeah, she knew that you knew. We were dating. We weren't dating. Let me be real. We were talking for like 6 months. And I thought we were dating, but we were just friends. And then we finally kissed 6 months into this friendship. And I remember being on cloud 9, and like the very next day, it was Thanksgiving. Oh my gosh, our anniversary's coming. It was Thanksgiving. As a matter of fact, it was Thanksgiving. I get a text saying, the kiss that happened last night was a mistake. I like somebody else.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Literally what happened. True story.
At least she added that.
She put me back in the friend zone, guys.
Jeez.
But then now look, I still won. The moral of the story is persevere, gentlemen. Persevere, okay?
Okay. Somebody take the mic. So, what I'll add really quickly, I think for Delaney and myself, and then I'll let you add as well. I think for me, I don't think I knew like right away. I knew you were someone I was really interested in. Like I've told this story before. Like she came to Wake. I remember where she was standing, like what she was wearing, like everything. It was like I had a moment, okay? And I was interested. I wasn't like God opened the heavens and was like, "This is your wife." Like I was like, I mean, if she wants to be my wife, like let's go for it. So, but I just know over time though, our relationship did grow and it built. And we did fall in love, and we didn't say we loved each other right away. I think it was a good 7 or 8 months into that relationship, and I finally said, this is the first and only girl that I ever said I love you to. And I kept that. I don't say that so you're like, oh my gosh. Like I kept that because I really did want to just express that and say that to one person. And so it's a process of falling in love, but I continue to fall in love with her more and more. And I loved how much she loved Jesus. And I've said this before, I have always been the second most important man in her life. She loves Jesus more than she loves me, and I'm okay with that. And the more that I saw that, the more I fell in love with her. And as we got to that point where I'm like, should we get engaged? Should we take this any further? I remember I had a peace about it. I didn't have this certainty that like, okay, if I marry her, everything's just gonna be perfect and we're never gonna have struggles. But I did have a peace that came over me. And I knew that there would be trouble, and I knew there would be struggles and hard times, but that overwhelming sense that this is the right thing, this is the right person. And so what I would tell you is if you're approaching engagement, or you're engaged and you're approaching the wedding day, and you are freaking out, and you're losing your mind, and you're like, I don't know if this is the right guy or the right girl, they honestly may not be. I think by that point, you should have understand there's gonna be hard times, but there should be a peace that comes over you. And always make sure that you're including other people in this, and they can help you in that decision of is this the right person? But I don't know, for me, I think it was just not a sense of, I know this is gonna work, but a sense of God just having this peace that came over me that, yeah, this is someone that you can marry and go for. So, did you wanna add or anything? Got it, I got it, okay.
I agree with that, and I love what you said about godly people in your life because we feel something, and sometimes we're afraid to open up, like what you were saying about people bringing their significant other over for dinner. Sometimes we feel something and we're afraid to open up and ask for validation from godly influences because we know already what they're gonna say. Yeah. And we're trying to avoid that tough conversation. But when you feel a certain way and then the godliest people in your life whether it be your parents, a mentor, a pastor, siblings, whatever, validate that feeling, that's when you can kind of start feeling the peace you were talking about. And I think that's why it's so important to be involved in church, to have godly influences in your life. That's the power of the community of the body of Christ, because you don't have to be alone in your decision making. You can have the accountability, the strength of voices in your life. So I love that. Want to jump to the next one? You guys getting stuff out of this? All right. This is a really important one. We talked about this. You mentioned this, Brandon, in one of your messages. I think I mentioned it a little bit last week. How do I tell a friend that she or he is in a toxic relationship without overstepping? How can I tell a friend that they are in a toxic relationship without overstepping? Does anybody want to volunteer to take that one? Any thoughts on that specifically?
I can start. Do you want to jump in? Okay, I'll start.
You start.
I think, how many of you guys would say that you've ever watched a friend that was in a bad or toxic relationship, like you've seen it happen? Okay, how many of you guys wanted to say something, but maybe you don't know how always, right? I do talk to people sometimes that are like, I don't know what to say, and then I also talk to people on the other side of it that are like, I said something and it went bad. So it's hard to understand how to do that and how to go about it. One thing I would say is that there does come a point where that is necessary. I love the book of Proverbs. In Proverbs 27, one of my favorite verses, it says, faithful are the wounds of a friend. And so there are moments in your life that as a friend, you have to be willing to say something that your friend may not want to hear. They may not want to hear this, but you have to be willing to say it. What I would tell you is, if you see someone that's truly in a toxic relationship, and you have to kind of look at, how are you defining toxic? Is this truly a really bad relationship for them? Is it ungodly? Are they not honoring each other? Are they not honoring God? Or is it just a relationship that you don't like? And so I think you need to kind of identify, is it really toxic? And what are my motives for trying to go and tell that person that I don't really think that what they're in is good for them? And so I think you have to look at all of it in that frame, and then look at, how am I going to approach this person? The Bible says that we can speak the truth, but we have to speak the truth in love. And so if you're gonna talk to that person, I think one of the best ways is, sometimes you might just wanna ask permission. Say, hey, we're friends. We've been friends for a long time. Maybe you're even best friends. And you would say, can you give me permission really quickly to tell you something about your relationship that you may not wanna hear, but I feel like I need to say this. I feel like I really need to say this in your life. And one of the things that I say, and I know this may sound easier said than done, but I think that if you are really close friends or best friends with somebody, and you guys can't speak honestly and truthfully into each other's lives without getting massively offended and feeling like you're gonna ruin your friendship, that's not a great friendship to begin with. Because great friends are not just there together when it's awesome and we're like hanging out and we're playing video games or whatever that looks like. Great friends are people that say, hey, we're gonna be together in the good times, but when things are not good, we're gonna be next to each other in that as well, and we call each other on our stuff. And if you as my friend are gonna take the time to come and call me out on something, then I'm gonna listen to what you're saying. And so make sure that on one side, that you're willing to take advice from people, but also if you give that advice, just check what kind of heart and what kind of spirit, and pick the right timing. Obviously, I think timing is really key with things like that as well.
For sure. One thing I would say, one of my greatest regrets in life, when I was 20 years old, my best friend got in a relationship that was really toxic, very, very, very unhealthy. And I, in my immaturity, thought that I needed to just tell her and just shut it down. And just, in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm loving you by being like aggressive and telling you like, this is not a good person for you. I lost that friend and we still don't speak. And I wear that regret every day because I think I could have handled that so much better. One thing that I have taken from that experience that I have tried over the course of the next decade of my life to apply is that what you just said, the speaking of the truth in love, I think it all generates from a deeper sense of empathy. When we can understand that someone has feelings attached to this person, you don't want to go down and just slam them down, make them feel foolish and stupid in the name of you trying to like, I'm right and I want to prove to you how right I am. We all have to approach everything, not just when it comes to talking to our friends about toxic relationships, but talking to the world about Jesus from a greater perspective of empathy, understanding people's humanity, understanding the complicated emotions that are attached. And when you go in from that frame of reference, from a heart that genuinely just wants to see them do well in life, it changes your tone and it changes your approach. And I think that's just something that we need to, if we're going to have that conversation, which I do think sometimes it's necessary, and we are asked, in God's word to be that voice of, just holding people accountable in people's lives. But if you're going to do that, approach it with that deep sense of empathy and let it guide the way that you enter into that conversation, and it will change it. And my cautionary tale is don't do what I did, because I was foolish and it was immature. And so if I could take it back, I would, but I think God also gave it to me to kind of use to help other people.
That's great.
Can I just add, I want to add on to that. What they just said is true in friendships, but it's great practice for marriage because you're going to have disagreements and you're going to say, why the heck did you do that? And speaking the truth in love and learning how to communicate clearly and without condemnation is great in a marriage. Because if you have the opposite, it's a nightmare.
And I was just going to say, too, I think that the danger in all of this is that we assume our friendships are at this level. And I think that a lot of people, they assume that, like, they have friends. And some people maybe, like, they're moving from out, they're attending school from out of town. And, like, they get into a dating relationship, and they haven't even established good friendships yet. And I think it's important that you have good friendships. And and I'll say this, like for dating, of course, I think that boundaries are important. But I think for your friendship, there's expectations. They're like, hey, do I have this permission to say this? So yeah, like you speak the truth in love, like the Bible says. But you also have this understanding, like that, hey, we can be real with one another. We can say this, like yes, you have permission to speak into my life. Like I invite that into my life. Rather than just assuming you'll say something, I'm actually going to be proactive and say, hey, please let me know when you see something that's unhealthy in my life.
Great.
Really good. Anybody else? This is a good one. I agree with everything you guys were saying. My wife has an interesting perspective on this. Delaney, what you were saying about the truth and love, because I have the kind of personality where it's just like, no, you shouldn't, blah, 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 blah. But then if you do that, that happens, and I've done my fair share of that as well. And then, Mandy, my wife, has this interesting perspective. If you don't know her story, she was married before. I can't go into all the details, but that ended up being a very toxic marriage because of, on his part, some decisions he made. But there were things that some of her closest friends knew about him that he was doing and involved with that she didn't know about, that her closest friends never told her. And they didn't tell her because they didn't want to hurt her because it was getting too close to the wedding. And after the fact, she found out that some of the closest people in her life that knew never opened up and shared, and those things ended up destroying her marriage. And so it's very important that what we were saying, Megan, about like in humility, learning how to, in humility, clearly and decisively still say something, but in humility and with softness. So I think all of that is really good. Guys, this is so important. Another part of the beauty of the church, you can have the truth in love relationships and accountability.
I have one quick thing to add. I would say if you're the person that's characterized by always being the one that gets in everybody's face about the decisions they're making that aren't right, check yourself. Because you want to go into that kind of a conversation in full humility and with reticence. I would say that every time I have to say something hard to someone, I don't really want to do it. So if you're super fired up and eager to go just like beat them over the head with
That's
the
great,
Bible
Sarah.
and the truth, then you need to really look at yourself, because there are people that are like that, and then you lose your credibility and your authority with your friends because they basically think, oh, they're doing that all the time, and then look at their life. And I'm not saying you have to be perfect in order to, bring someone in the light if there's something really bad, but you want to be having their best interest at heart, and it should probably feel like a struggle to actually have to confront them and say this hard thing. So
That's so good, Sarah.
The only people who loved pointing their finger in the Bible were the Pharisees, so keep that in mind. So the next question I think is really important too. We hit a little bit on this in the series, but it's worth talking about now. How can I be fulfilled while in my single season? In singleness, how can I be fulfilled? Nick and Marion, do you guys want to take this?
Sure. I think if you look at singleness not as like a detriment, as something bad in your life, but as a season, I think if you change your perspective on singleness, it starts to change how you look at it. So instead of singleness, like I hear a lot of people in your age group say, I'm just trying to find the one, instead of focusing on what God is trying to do with you and to you in that season. He's preparing you for what we think is the one, right? And I think you being here tonight in this, if you're single out here, being in here tonight is where you're supposed to be and where you should be. And I think just surrounding yourself with people who will build you up in this season and not be consumed with looking for a person to be with. That makes sense.
I think it's really good. Anybody else want to jump in on that? Because I have a lot of things to say and I don't want to keep talking.
I would say a lot of people look at their single season. I said this before, but they're like, single season is like the season of purgatory. It's like they're suffering until they, get to marriage. And what we do is if we look at singleness in that way, it's going to end up being a season of pain, right? We're in pain because we're alone. We're in pain because we don't have someone. We're in pain because, we're not dating or we're not married. And the problem with pain as humans is we don't like pain. And so anytime that we are in pain or we have a headache or we feel sick, we try to take medicine. Our pain becomes a problem that we have to solve. And so if your singleness is like that, you're gonna start looking at singleness as a problem that needs to be solved. And okay, I have this problem called singleness, and the pill is a relationship. The pill is marriage. And really all that's gonna do for that moment is just cover the pain that you have, and it's not gonna truly solve it or fix it. And so embrace singleness. We've said this before, your single season is an amazing season. And so love the time that you have. Like I love my wife and I love my kids, but I don't have the free time that I used to have. Like it doesn't exist anymore, okay? And so love the time you have, love the freedom you have, love a little bit of extra money you might have, but embrace your single season. Use it for God. I love to say, do like these big time-consuming things for God while you're single, because that's what you can do right now. So own it, become complete, become okay with who you are, and when you get to that point, I feel like that's when God just opens the door and makes this dating thing a whole lot easier. I think some of you guys are, not some of you guys, that sounds really hurtful, but a lot of people are so desperate in this dating season, and all they're wanting is a relationship, and I think God is looking at you like, if you'll stop the desperation for someone else and just be desperate for me, let me take care of you, and I will bring this person into your life so you don't have to go on the hunt for them. And you don't have to go try to find somebody that I never meant for you to have. And so own this season. It's a great, singleness is awesome, and even if it carries into your mid-20s or God forbid into your 30s, you're gonna be fine, I promise. But own it, because you're always gonna have this moment in your life where you look back on your singleness as something that you don't like long for it, but you're like, man, I wish I would have just done more with that. I wish I would have done more with that season of my life, so.
Yeah, I was just going to add, Sarah and I's life is very busy. For those of you that know us, we travel a lot. We have 3 kids that are scattered across the country. We visit them a lot. So if I look back to that period in my life that was pretty short, but I was involved in a lot of community. So I didn't view it as singleness. I was involved in other things. I, did sports or did community events or take that opportunity, because once you're in a relationship, and certainly once you're married, life goes really quick and you'll be tied up into all kinds of things. And go play softball, go learn how to do pottery, do something interesting that you've never done before with a community of other people, because they'll start to fulfill some of that human need of connection. And then at some point, God will bring somebody else in your life. But in the meantime, meet some friends.
I love that. Man, Craig, you're getting the most applause up here. Okay, so I love it. And I think I'll add, people, when you're single, I didn't get married till I was 27. So I was the youth pastor for 5 or 6 years, single youth pastor. And what you were saying, Brandon, is interesting, because I watch you guys youth pastoring right now as a married couple with 2 little kids. And then I think about me youth pastoring as a single guy. I was a 24-hour on-call youth pastor, and I could be. Like if a teenage guy called me at midnight and he was like, I'm drunk at a party and blah, I was like, I'll come get you. Now I'd be like, get an Uber. I'll pray for you. I got kids in bed. But it's just different, right? I also think people, they're single, and what happens is you start getting this feeling of time's running out. Time's running out. And the more time is running out, the more that feeling that time is running out, the lower our standards get. So it's the older I get, the lower my standards are. because I'm running out of time and I can't be picky. And then but you have to realize that God doesn't operate in time. He created time, he's outside of time. He sees it like a sphere and we see it like a line. So we think we're running out of time and God's up there stressing for us like, you didn't find the one, what's gonna happen now? And he's already in the future and has it prepared. I heard somebody say one time, God's timing never makes sense until it does. And what's interesting is all of us, probably when we were single, were stressing about where's the one, who is the one? And then once we found the person we were going to marry, you look back and you go, in every minute of the timeline makes sense. Because if I would have met him then, it wouldn't have worked. If I wouldn't have, and that's what's so interesting, and that's what you were saying, it always comes back to what you said, just complete trust in God, fulfillment in God. That sounds like the just, I don't know, churchy answer, but it's just the answer. So, yeah. Next question, anybody else? Singleness? Okay, this is a really, really, really important one too. What has helped in terms of avoiding temptation within a dating relationship? What has helped with avoiding temptation? Anybody?
I'll jump in. So we talk all the time. This is a huge premise, foundational premise of this series every single year. And those of you who have been around for many years of these relationship series, you have heard this a million times. We talk all about how God has called us to be equally yoked, right? And what that means in modern day terms is just on the same page spiritually with someone. And so we really do encourage you to, this isn't like some creepy dating group that we're like, everyone's on the lookout for their spouse in this room, but we do encourage you, like, this is the environment where look for someone who, loves God passionately, who is pursuing them with their whole heart. And so what that facilitates is this is kind of the environment where you're going to find someone great. And what that causes, however, on the other side is if you are to break up with someone that you met here at Citizen Young Adults, then you still go to Citizen Young Adults and they do too. And that gets weird, right? Inevitably. And that's just the reality of dating within the church. It makes it that much weirder when you've crossed lines physically and you've done things you regret. One or both of you may pull out of the church entirely. I think one of the best ways to create those boundaries is finding someone who has that level of accountability of visibly being in church with you. And then you've got an entire church family that knows your relationship, knows you, is cheering you on, is holding you accountable, and then you're that much less likely to cross lines that you never want to cross. That doesn't always happen, but it's a great way to at least start that process of dating visibly within the church. That is the point of the church in every aspect of your life. It's all designed to make us better, to help us in the journey of life, whatever season you may find yourself in. Whether it's dating, marriage, raising children, we're there to help each other. And so I think it's a great way for us to just be a little more cognizant that people are paying attention. And, when you're serving in our youth ministry or in kids ministry, young people are paying attention. And it gives you that much more of a desire to live up to the standard that you want them to see. I think, just setting boundaries. Garrett and Kim last year talked on this on the panel, and they did such a great job because their relationship, immediately they set boundaries, physical boundaries that they were just unwilling to cross. And not only did they keep those as a couple, but they shared them with people in their world. And I think that's so wise. You may feel like it's weird. You may feel like that's an uncomfortable conversation to have, but there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think it's a very wise thing to do to set your future marriage up for success. So that would be just some tips I have on that.
I think it's great. When you're in the environment, you're like in this environment like you talked about. I mean, sometimes you're worshiping, lifting, like maybe you just give the side eye and see, like, are they worshiping, like, how well do they worship? Are they taking notes? Like, Megan and I were attending a church together. Like, I was like, dang, girl, you're stacking those chairs at this church plant, like, you stack those, you serve, Like, it was incredible. But I saw the way that she served and she loved Jesus. Don't stop being weird about that. Like, but it was just like the way that she loved God was so impressive. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, I wasn't like the creepy guy, like, oh my gosh, like lifting my hands for like, oh she's worshiping over there, But I think that's it. Like, I'm joking a little bit, but like the environment is so important. It shouldn't just be like, look who I brought today. Like it's like has no context or understanding of what it means to love God. And so I think that that's so important. That's all I wanted to say. Go ahead, Nick.
I think, too, when it comes to avoiding temptation, I think use common sense. I mean, we talk about boundaries a lot, but what are boundaries? And I think we all, if we're honest, we know when we should be somewhere and when we shouldn't. We know that maybe going over to a girlfriend's house at 2 a.m. to watch a movie might not be the wisest thing. My mic cut out. Let's be real. Are you teaching me how to hold a mic? All right. Wow, that's awesome. So seriously though, like using common sense, making sure that you guys have those kind of discussions, and you guys are talking about that. And those are conversations, to Delaney's point, that can be a little weird at times, but they're conversations that have to happen. You have to be able to set boundaries, but then once the boundaries are set, what's cool about boundaries, if both of you are on the same page, then the boundaries in and of themselves become an accountability tool where you know the standard, this is the line we don't cross, and these are the positions we don't find ourselves in. So I would say use common sense, use sound judgment, and don't put yourself in positions. Let me say one more thing really quick. And two, because this is the truth, this is the reality of it. Once you cross those lines, it's not impossible to come back, guys, but it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to cross those lines and then, okay, now we're not going to do it. Oh, okay, now we're going to put up boundaries. So if I can give you any advice, it's have the conversations before you cross the lines and save yourself the stress and save yourself the drama.
That's great.
I just wanted to add, if you have that conversation with the other person and they're not okay with your boundaries, probably not the right person. So you guys have to agree together, and it should be a big red flag if you say a boundary and they are not okay with it. That should be your sign to move on.
That's great.
Anything else? Anybody?
I have the dad answer because I could be the dad and most of you
Do
in this
it.
room. So the dad answer is avoid alcohol in excess.
True. Avoid alcohol in excess.
That's
Look at these people clapping. They all know.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
And
like
the
three
mom
people that are
answer,
like-
my
You
answer
hurt a lot of
is,
feelings.
I like sugar, and if I want to not eat brownies, I shouldn't make a pan of brownies and put them in the middle of the kitchen counter and walk past them 100 times a day. So don't put yourself in a position where you have to look at the brownies all the time and try not to eat them.
I like that. Also, I think I also like brownies, so you can make them for us if you want to. Okay, so I think that also you have to look at your life right now and just, if you're a Christian, look at your life and think, how much natural accountability do you have without having to work at having accountability? So, like Nick mentioned that we were roommates. I mean, if Nick were to, or if I were to come home at 1 a.m. or whatever when we're roommates, I mean, we're gonna look at each other the next morning and be like, what were you doing? I mean, what are you doing? And I mean, those are the kinds of things. So even if you're in an environment right now, let's say you're really working at your relationship with God, but you're roommates with people you know will never, ever, ever ask you tough questions, then you need to ask yourself, are you really willing to do whatever it takes to live the life God has for you? Or do you want to, like the metaphor that Sarah was using, do you want to put yourself in an environment that is just basically a petri dish for temptation? Because you need to be able to make the decisions necessary, even if it's moving out and moving in with other roommates or moving back home with your parents even. Whatever it might be, it's worth it. It's worth it if it'll keep you from making those decisions. Okay, let's see. You guys getting stuff out of this? Say yes. Okay, next one. How do you not fall? If you wrote this question, I love you. But the question's a little flawed, and we'll explain. How do you not fall out of love after being with someone for so long? For so long. I know so long is relative, and I don't want to pick on you guys, but you guys have been the ones that are married for almost 27 years. So what would you say is the key to success with not, quote unquote, falling out of love?
A great question, and I don't think it matters if you're married for 6.5 years or 7, depending on who is answering, or 27. It's important to continue to connect and communicate and spend time. So it doesn't matter if you've been married for a year or 10 years or 27. It is intentional and it is hard work to find the time to continue to connect and grow together. So Sarah and I are very intentional about spending time alone together, and how we define that is not watching a movie. Because watching a movie is not really spending time alone together. The other person couldn't be there and you wouldn't even know the difference. It is talking, it is in communication, It doesn't mean holding your phones. It doesn't mean streaming the entire season of The Crown or Ozark. Spending time alone together always, when you're dating, when you first get married, and then as long as you're married, that I think has been our secret, that we are more in love and more infatuation with each other than ever. And we've been 27 years. So.
I believe you. You want to know why? You had this weird smirk on your face, like, I don't know. I just believe you. Were you going to say something? You grabbed the mic, so I was just saying. Megan, go for it.
You don't fall out of love.
That's it.
I'm sorry for whoever wrote the question. God is love. And God does not fall out of love with any of us. So love is a choice. Love is every day, whether you like him that day or not. This is marriage, okay? Now, when you're dating, you have wiggle room to say bye. But you can't. It's a commitment, and that's for better or worse. Richer or poorer, healthy kids, sick kids, no kids, all of those things. And I am grateful that we don't give up on each other on the days that he doesn't like me, on the days that I don't like him. It's
Never happened.
It's speaking the truth in love. It's being understanding when you don't want to be understanding. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm going to jump in real quick. Do you care if I jump in real quick? That is an amazing answer to this, and it's so true. And I think the reason why, I know I'm not picking on the person who wrote it, but that's what everyone says. And so, but the premise of what we've accepted as reality is wrong. So if you fall in love, if you use that terminology, falling means it's an accident. So what we're saying is I accidentally fell for someone I'm gonna try to spend the rest of every waking moment for the rest of my life with. I accidentally got into this relationship. If you accidentally get into a relationship, it's a lot easier to accidentally get out of it. And I think that if you let emotions drive you into a marriage, then what happens when the emotions are gone? Because what Megan said, we kind of laughed at it. But when you're married, there's days you don't like, you love them, but you don't like your spouse. There's days where you're just like, I don't know if I like you right now, but I love you. But some people, if you're single right now, you might be thinking, I don't accept that. I think that I can be the exception because of what we see pushed on us in our culture, with Hollywood, whatever, movies, TV shows we're watching. It's this thing where I can have that emotional feeling of being in love every waking moment, and it's just not there. And so when you said, the key is, yes, emotions are important. You want to feel in love with the person a lot. That's great. But when you decide and you're intentionally deciding your way into a relationship, then one day you're not going to fall out of love. You will have to, if you ever do, obviously it's not okay according to the Bible, but if you ever do want to get a divorce, you're having to intentionally decide your way out of it. And that's a whole lot more difficult than just falling out. And I think that's what we have to really focus on it's everyday intentional work with communication, finding time, going on dates, talking, communicating. I mentioned this last week, but there's no exception. Every single night after the kids go to bed, we spend 1 hour. Mandy and I spend 1 hour not watching TV. I sit on one side of the couch, of the sectional couch. She sits on the other side. We both have our little seats, and we talk. We talk about the kids, we talk about our day, we talk about our finances, we talk about stuff going on at the church. And if we didn't do that, I wouldn't know my wife. I wouldn't know her because everything is so crazy, right? So anybody else have anything you want to add to that?
I'm sorry, I'm going to speak up one more time.
No, go for it.
As far as it comes to emotions, I had someone say to me one time that emotions are a great tool, but they're a horrible master. And you can't live your life emotion to emotion. You have to be able to control those emotions and make those emotions work for you.
Awesome.
You want to say anything to that? Because right before I said something, you were going to say something, and I felt bad.
I just didn't know if you wanted to ask one more question or not.
Are we running out of time?
Depends.
Oh, man.
We're running out.
Which one should I ask?
Whatever.
Sorry, give me 1 second. Gosh, that last 20 minutes went by so fast. Okay, hold on. Give me some. This is gonna be awkward, but I need to pick the best one.
What's the best message if you're gonna slide into DMs? What do you send? No, I'm just kidding. No. We don't do
Brandon,
that, right?
You slither into DMs.
Let's
right?
go. There we go.
I was listening. Let's see. So we can hit, I'm gonna ask you, I'm just gonna go for it. You guys just pretend this isn't happening. Do you wanna hit the abuse one, the baggage one, or the first year one?
All of them. No. Why don't we try to hit a couple, but we can just have one
Quick,
person respond to them.
Let's just do speed answers on these. This is gonna be a little bit, well, this one actually won't be difficult. What should I do if I'm in an abusive relationship?
Get out.
Yeah.
So I think specifically, honestly, we were just saying this backstage. In the coming weeks, we'll spend time in a sermon and really address what this looks like in marriage. But let me just speak to dating real quick. If you're dating, somebody yell out to me, what's the definition of dating? Okay, so if you're evaluating and the person you're dating is verbally abusive to you or physically abusive or whatever that looks like emotionally, if you're evaluating properly, you're gonna go, okay, I didn't like that at all. If they're physically abusive, you can come tell us at the church, you can pick up your phone and call the cops, whatever you need to do, but get out of that. If it's physical abuse, get out. Go as far as you can, and you don't owe that guy anything, you don't owe that girl anything, you get out as far as you can. But when you're dating, when you see these things, those are massive red flags, and those are not things you dismiss. You don't go, oh, he just got kind of angry, and he was a little bit drunk. I think when you're angry and you do something, you still had to decide to do that. If you were drunk and did something, I still think that stuff is deep inside of you, and I still think that is who you are. Okay, it wasn't the alcohol, it was you. It was them. And so get out of that stuff. And so any kind of abuse, I think you go, and if you need to report it. If you need to come to us at the church, we'll do a weekend to help you. But get in community and get the heck out as fast as you can.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep moving. How to determine what baggage or things from their past is okay to live with or accept. Somebody's thinking about okay. I'm thinking about dating
English real
somebody.
fast.
Yeah. Yeah, Charlie. And they've got baggage.
We need an interpretation.
Yeah. That's good. They've got baggage. How do I know how much of that to accept and say, I'm willing to take that into marriage? I can answer it quick if somebody wants me to.
Anybody?
I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
Since no one's jumping in. I would jump in on every question. If y'all know me, you know exactly that's what I would do. I would say that I had lots of baggage. I came from a divorced family. When Craig and I met in college, I was actually one of the few 18-year-old girls in college at University of Wisconsin-Madison that did not drink because I was a recovering alcoholic, and I'm proud of it, and I've been sober 30 years. So I had a past, and I was sexually active and promiscuous and all of the wrong things before he met me. Now, we didn't know Christ. I didn't have a group like this that I sat in week after week. I'm so grateful my girls have been under this teaching because they are so much further ahead than me. But we have a God who is the God of second chances.
Yeah. Come on.
And so I was getting my life together. And so thank God Craig didn't look at my past and say, she's damaged. Because I had a hope and a future. And he has spoken so much truth into my life. And he had a past too. It just wasn't quite as bad as mine if you want to compare, right? But the bottom line is that you have to know what you're comfortable with, and you have to know if they're really working towards getting themselves right. Are they working towards? And I was sober, and it was a deal breaker. If you're not okay with that, you're out, is what I basically said to him. And week 2. I didn't wait. So anyway, I would just say it has to be good for both of you, but God is the one who can make someone better. And, don't hang around with them if they don't seem like they're making things better, right? It's not an excuse to just say oh, yeah, I'll get there. Nope, I was sober and doing that when we met, so.
I think that's good. I think that with the big issues, don't look at someone and say don't have the attitude of they have so much potential. I know they can overcome this one day. Marriage is an amplifier of good and bad. So, but also at the same time, I loved what you said about baggage from the past. Somebody go, hey, this was in my past, and I've been forgiven, and I'm set free, and I'm not perfect, but I'm moving forward. It's also a pipe dream to think that new baggage won't be created in the present and in the future. So if you're just, nope, I'm not accepting anybody's baggage from the past, what human being are you gonna be married with for the rest of your life that new baggage isn't gonna appear, okay? So that's something else. Do you wanna end one more, or are we done? You call it.
What was the last one? I don't remember.
The last one was advice for the first year of marriage.
Sure. Let's go a couple. So a lot of people will say your first year of marriage is the hardest by far. And honestly, though, it's relative. It just depends on who you ask. For me and Delaney, we were talking about it. Our first year, so some couples are like, oh my gosh, the first year, like we almost killed each other. Our first year was honestly not that bad. Like it was pretty good. We hit more speed bumps in like year 3 and year 4. And so you have to understand that you might jump in and right away be like, oh my gosh, we thought we were ready and we really weren't. That doesn't mean get out of your marriage. That means start to fight for it and work to fix it. But yeah, I just think in your first year and in dating, I think the greatest thing that I've seen that's gotten us on the right path and the right track is when we are both acting really selflessly. That's when we're doing the best. When I'm doing everything I can, I know that sounds easy, it's not though, but when I'm doing everything I can to put her first, take care of her needs, and she's doing the same for me, and we really are watching out for each other, that's the best thing. And so before you're married, man, work on being selfless. And if you know you're selfish and you like things the way you like them and you don't like when your plans get changed, then you're not ready to get married. And so, wait, don't get into a marriage if that's the way you're acting. But I think selflessness was a big thing for us and is still to this day. So
I think that's awesome. Everybody agree? Yeah. Everybody agree? Hey, can we give everybody on this panel a huge round of applause? Thank you.